Our creativity is the sum of our consumption, is what I started thinking. It's the sum of our experiences in life, right? So what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, the video games you play, the places you travel, this is all what informs our creativity. So I went from constantly watching things, constantly listening to things, playing things, hanging out with people, and just absorbing it all, and all of this informed all of my creativity. So every bit of this was where my ideas came from, but after a while I started finding I was having a hard time coming up with ideas because I stopped experiencing life. I stopped consuming things because I was so wrapped up in work, and that made it really, really difficult. Again, relationships, the people you hang out with, your significant others, and just analyzing them, because what you put in is what you're going to get out, right? Like the creativity that you put into yourself is the type of things, if you're a horror fanatic, more than likely that sort of genre is going to inform what you do. A good example of that is Spielberg, right? The Spielberg father figure. We probably all have heard this. When he was a kid, his parents divorced, right? He blamed his father, and then look at his earlier films. Look at the father figures in his earlier films. What happened in his life greatly informed these thematic elements that he started putting into all of his films. And consuming, not enough. You have to analyze the world around you, especially if you want to be a writer or director. If you want to say something in your story, you have to have something to say. To have something to say, you have to analyze the things you see around you, analyze people, places, things. Why did people do the things they do? Break that crap down, you know? And you don't even have to fully understand it, you just have to want to. Start to pick it apart. Why did this person say this thing when they really meant that? Why did this person do this behind my back? Don't just be pissed at them, figure it out. Why did they do this? This will inform your characters and take your writing to a whole new level, for sure. And if you hit a wall with your idea, put yourself in a box. So what do I mean by that? If you have a whole universe of possibilities when it comes to ideas, that's really hard. Unless you already have something that you've always wanted to make, and you're on a deadline, which I often am, and they're like, hey, give me an idea. Oh, crap. You know what I mean? You have like this entire scope of things that you can do. So plucking one is really difficult, but then you finally do. You're like, okay, this is the one. This is the one I want to do. Oh, but that one looks good too. And then you forget about that one, and you don't do what you originally set out to do, because now this one. But if you put yourself in a box, and my box with Film Riot is always the technique that we're teaching. So that week we have to do the super speed effect that we just did, right? So, okay, it has to be a super speed effect. That's my box. I have a limitation. It's really easy to then pin an idea on that. So put yourself in a box. For me, I'm writing a feature right now. And the way I came to that, I had this like setting that I'm like, this type of movie would be awesome in that setting. I've never seen that. So I had my setting. All right, who are the players? What are the characters? What are the characters I want to put in there and mess with and ruin their lives? Okay, these are the characters. I'm going to put them in there, right? And slowly but surely, this idea starts to blossom from that. And then you start to figure out things you want to say. I would like to talk about this, put that in there. And that's going to start informing your story. So where ideas come from, I think, is a lot more simplistic than a lot of people think, a lot than I thought, at least for me. Because slowly but surely, these things started to make a lot of sense to me. Now, breaking your story. Couch time. It's not napping, it's working. My wife says it's napping. I'm like, shut up, I'm working. Leave me alone. I'm not relaxing, I'm working. And it is, it's brain power, man, right? I mean, brain power, that's the hardest work. That's the most exhausting stuff. And it's sometimes stressful because you're like, come on, come up with that thing. But just sitting there is where you're gonna come up with the thing. Driving is usually where I break a lot of the ideas in my story. Showers, which I like to call the Adam state, because you're vulnerable. Just so vulnerable. I'm a never nude though. So I'm like, I got the short shorts on. It's still sexy. Research. This one's huge. It helps you craft your story. Again, with the feature that I'm writing, this one has completely saved me. It fixes plot problems, it plugs holes, saves you from inaccuracies. One of the big things with the feature that I'm currently writing is I did my basic outline, and there were just so many holes. I'm like, why does this happen? Okay, I know we have to get here. I know the character has to do this, but why? How? But then I started researching this certain setting and the things that go on there, and well, that's perfect. And it started solving my problems for me. So research is one of the biggest things. Once you have your general outline, just start researching whatever it is. Even if it's, relationship, drama that takes place in one room, start researching relationships, different types of people. That stuff will help you a lot. Should I write what I know? No, you shouldn't. I've said it on the show before, and I think people misunderstand what I mean, and I hope other people mean, by write what you know. If you wrote only what you knew, we wouldn't have horror, we wouldn't have fantasy, we certainly wouldn't have, Hobbit, Star Wars, Star Trek, clearly. Even things like Gravity. I mean, Alfonso Cuarón hasn't been in the space to my knowledge. But when you're talking about emotion, That's what I mean, write what you know. How can you write a true love story if you've never experienced love? But you don't necessarily have to have experienced that. You just have to understand it or want to understand it, which is where research comes into play, right? So research, understand, or just want to. Ask questions, explore through that, coming of age type story sort of thing. Why did these sort of things happen? And ask a question, don't necessarily have an answer, which is what a lot of good films do. They don't shove an answer down your throat, they ask a lot of questions to get you to think.